And I want you to biblically try to discern this, try to answer this.
I love listening to classical music. It's not surprising then to occasionally come across music written for Catholic Mass and requiems. Although I'm a Protestant, it does tickle my ears as it's beautiful music to listen to. My question, however, is whether it's okay to listen to it or not because it's Catholic. The way I understand it, Catholics do believe in the same God and the same Jesus as we do, but they do add works to the gospel. They use sacraments, etc., etc. Where do we draw the line when it comes to Catholic music? So I think that's a great question because we've got all sorts of things like this in our life that we ask, I wonder, does God approve of this? Does God not approve of this? So what do you think? Does God approve of Christians? I'm not so much interested in whether we're Protestants, but is it okay for a Christian to listen to Catholic music?
Isn't the question is she likes this is I don't know if it's a he or she classical music, but and they just happen to play some Catholic sounding songs or whatever. Is that how it is, or is this specifically going to buy Catholic classical music? Because quite different is if you listen to radio and you listen to normal classical music and then this Catholic sounding mass song or whatever comes on, then it's just a one-off or whatever. Or if you're going out to buy it, it's a different question.
Well, he is saying he loves classical music, and he says it's not surprising to occasionally come across music written for Catholic Mass and requiems. But then what he says is this: although I'm Protestant, it does tickle my ears as it's beautiful music to listen to. My question, however, is whether it's okay to listen to it or not because it's Catholic.
I was once in the car and I was listening to classical FM, and eventually this album came on, and I was like, wow, this is really good. This it was like I found it like as a musician, as someone who produces music, as a composer, I was listening to it thinking, this is like really unique. It had kind of like choir singing in, but it had kind of some modern symphony, and it was really like different. And then like one song kind of came on after a while because I think they played like unless they just played one or two songs, and then I found the album on Spotify. But as I started listening, I started thinking, wait a minute, like I got to one track in the album and it seemed quite like Catholic. It sounded, I think it was saying like something like the word Mary. Could hear the word Mary or something like that. And so I kind of checked it up, and it turned out that, it was indeed it was a Catholic composer that joined with a modern composer and then kind of wrote this album. But I mean, I appreciated it for what it was as music, but when music begins to say something, and it's their truth, it's their teaching, because when music, sorry, that struggling anything there. So when an album has lyrics, it then has more. It has a deeper content to it. It has some kind of message that it's trying to put through, and at that point, I do get a bit concerned about the message. But in some Catholic music, a lot of times you can't really hear the lyrics. It's kind of just like a wall of angelic voices, like it sounds. So I can listen to that no problem and appreciate for what it is. I can appreciate for what it is, but
Right.
You mentioned that you went to you went to that. What's that?
Handel's Messiah? Or
Yeah,
what?
you went to Handel's Messiah, right? And that was playing like, biblical songs, but by people who were lost, and yet you could appreciate it. So there's a kind of another angle to like listening to music when someone's lost and they're playing it, or like Fernando Ortega, he's a very good musician, a great singer, but he played in a Mormon temple and leading worship for Mormons, and I would take issue with that personally. Like, I don't think that's good.
You just defiled my conscience, Sonny. I didn't know that, and I've got Fernando Ortega on my phone. Thank you very much.
Surely it's got to be a conscience issue, because there are many things that you might know which might then make it sin for you to do something. For example, Paul gives such an example with meat, and he says, eat anything that's in the meat shop and don't question it. But if you know that it's it has been, if someone tells you, if someone informs you, gives you that extra information that it has been sacrificed to idols, then abstain from it. And I think it can be the same thing can be applied to music in a very broad sense, in the sense that first the medium, what kind of music. Obviously in this question it's classical music, but I know that it's not just the lyrics. I mean, a heavy metal piece can be very can have the most beautiful lyrics, but many Christians and many people might have issue listening to it just because of the medium, the music style. And then, as Sonny said, then there's the lyrics, and then there's the extra thing of actually, do you understand the lyrics? Is it something in Latin that you don't actually understand? In which case you can just ignorance is bliss, and just listen to it without.
Yeah, that's why Sonny can't understand half of it, because it's all in Latin.
I appreciate classical music. As you know, music's been my life. I was a music major, and I appreciate all kinds of music. And there's good music and there's bad music, but classical music, many of the classical composers were lost musicians, but they had the skill and they were exceptionally talented. But I can appreciate music, and a lot of the music here today is just a lot of noise. Music has to have melody, rhythm, and harmony. And a lot of times you don't hear that anymore. But I do appreciate good classical music. And a lot of this, like I said, is lost musicians, but they just had the talent.
Yeah, I have some classical song lists on Spotify, and some of them are these Catholic requiems. And I can tell you this, if I hear the name Mary or Maria in that song, I typically kill it. Because, one of the big things that this person asking the question doesn't really talk about, he talks about, they add works to the gospel and use sacraments, but what he doesn't really draw out is just how much they worship Mary. And I don't know about the rest of you. I cannot tolerate the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. They may have the best rendition of a song, but I am not going to listen to them. Maybe somebody else can, and they can delight in it. You can say, well, isn't that being inconsistent? You can listen to Handel's Messiah and have lost singers sing it. There's even a rendition by your London Philharmonic Orchestra and choir. But I don't know. There's some. I guess they're not pretending to be religious, whereas the Mormons are, and it just grates at me. But
recently, there's been a musician, a very popular musician on YouTube, and she's got millions of views on, and she used to do renditions of hymns. I didn't even know she was actually Catholic all along, anyway. But eventually, she's recently just dropped that profession, and but what would you think about that? Like listening to a hymn from a Catholic, like or like what?
Here's the thing: we have Titus 1:5 that says, "To the pure, all things are pure. And so, listen, if it's kind of like a song that maybe had an author who turned out not to be saved. He wrote a Christian song and he turns out not even to be a legitimate Christian. But when we sing it as a church, we worship the Lord. Well, you know what? Is the Lord going to in any way condemn us because the original author didn't know him, even though the words speak truth? See, here's the thing. This comes back. I think this is the real issue. We can, like me, I got my own pet peeve about the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, even though I might say to the pure, all things are pure. And, you know, if I listen to one of their songs and the words are accurate and proper Christian doctrine, I shouldn't care maybe who's singing it. Well, I do in that case. And you might say I'm not being consistent because another case, that's okay. I mean, that's just a personal thing. But here's one thing that we can't get away from. This is true no matter what we're talking about with regards to music. And it's been brought up. And it's a thing I think we really need to think about. It's got to do with the words. If we're entertaining music, and it doesn't matter what genre we're talking about. I know George was talking about, you know, some people don't like if something is heavy metal, even if the words seem like they're praising the Lord. I recognize we may, you know, some people don't like jazz. Some people, myself included, I detest hip hop. I can't. Christian hip hop is an abomination in my ears. I don't like it. I can't tolerate it.
You need to listen to some Shailin, man.
No. But here's the thing. The words. Listen, we need to be people of truth, and we should not be tolerating error. And that I think that's a big case. You think about this, the Catholic Church. You know what it says in 1 Timothy chapter 4? It says that in the last days, we're going to have people propagating doctrines that are specifically called demon doctrines. You know what's interesting? Two of the demon doctrines that Paul touches on, forbidding to marry, and also abstinence from certain foods. I'll tell you that the Catholic Church, you're not supposed to eat meat on Fridays. You observe Lent and you give up certain things. Their clergy don't marry. That's demonic. And so I'll tell you, the Catholic religion is damning hundreds of millions of people. And so we want to be careful. I mean, to the pure, all things are pure, but to the pure, not what is impure is pure. I mean, you can't go down that path. The clear teaching of Scripture is we need to come out from among them. There are certain things that are unclean that we should not touch. And so we want to be careful about the words. Yes, if it's in Latin and you just simply, it's like, you know, sometimes Ruby will exercise to Latino music. Well, I don't understand a thing that it's saying, so I don't really care. I mean, my daughters oftentimes would exercise to that as well. I mean, but if I could understand the words and I heard that it was something that was unacceptable, well, then no, we're not going to listen to that. But I think among all the areas that we might say are gray here, and we all kind of have our own personal preferences, one of the things that we don't want to tolerate is error. I mean, error is no small thing, and being exposed to error is not harmless. It's corrupting. And listen, there's a reason why it's called demon doctrine. It's because there are demons and devils behind this stuff, and it's meant to deceive people. It's meant to corrupt. It's meant to take men and women to hell. And so we want to be careful there. We want to be people of truth. We can enjoy music. I think music is, I think that that's just a stunning part of how God has created man. I marvel. I have a Spotify song list of it's basically film scores that sometimes if I feel tired and I'm working at my desk, I put these on, and but I just marvel. I marvel at the variety and the skill. I mean, yes, like Papa was saying, I can listen to Bach or Mozart and be amazed. I can just be amazed that God created people that can actually create that kind of music. That just blows me away. And I can listen to it thinking about the Lord, thinking about how he has just gifted men. I think that's the thing that you have to think about. You know, one of the things that I think is so key is this: what is worldly, and you know, John defines this for us. What is worldly is that which is not of the Father. It's what is worldly is basically that which excludes God. What's worldly is when we're satisfied with something and God's not in it. That's worldly. When we say, wow, this is as good as it gets and God's not in it. We marvel at things and God's not in our thoughts. That's worldly. But when we see the creation, when we see beautiful things, when we see what man can do, and we marvel at how God is created, we're thankful to God. I mean, see, that needs to be some of our measuring stick. The things that we allow in our life, are they encouraging worship? Do they cause our minds to think about the Lord? Or do we basically pursue these pastimes to create this little piece of our life where God is void? If we have any part of our life, like, oh, we like to see a movie, and we have these pastimes where God's not allowed. I mean, we go into these places in our life to get a break from God. You see, that is what worldly is. That is how the world thinks. And if we find that, see, one of the things that Paul says is that he will not be brought under the power of anything. And I think we need to measure the things in our life. He also says not everything builds up, not everything edifies, not everything is profitable. And so we want to make sure that we're weighing these things out. Are they profitable? Do they cause me to think on the Lord? Do they cause me to praise the Lord? Do they cause me to think high thoughts of the Lord? Do they cause me to marvel in what the Lord has done? And I can marvel in the Lord when I marvel at what man is able to do, because I realize that God created man. God gave us the mind. God gave us the ability. See, we were created in his image. But we just want to be careful that we don't have these little segments or these chapters of our life that we allow in where God is not allowed in, where God is basically pushed out. We want to enjoy things for the sake. I wish I could quote Augustine exactly what he said. He said something like, you know, he never wanted to love anything that he didn't love for God's sake.
He loves thee too little who loves
Yeah,
anything.
there you go. He loves thee too little who loves anything that he loves, not for his sake, or something like that. But and we should be minded that way.
You know, when you speak about Christian hip hop, would you say that, do you think other Christians shouldn't listen to it, or is it just for you personally? Like,
I have never told anybody else they should not listen to it. But
Okay, well, I'm gonna tell you, you should listen to it.
no, I shouldn't.
No, but you know what you were saying before, like, and I'm not saying, and this isn't in no way trying to convince you or anything. I would say this is there's some hip hop track, no, I mean rap tracks, you know, where they use like fast poetry and it's over a beat. Yeah, basically hip hop.
Honey, it has to do with preference.
No.
I despise the genre.
Yeah, I know that's fine, but some of the stuff I've heard, like from like Beautiful Eulogy, Shylin, Timothy Brindle, like sometimes I'm like, I'm just paused and I'm like, wow, God is great, and and these men are like making much of Christ, making much of solid, pure doctrine, and doing it in a way where even the music itself has this brightness about it, this light about it. I would say this, that there's some trap music. I don't know if you've heard of trap music. Well, it should be called whack music, but
It does not brighten my life, brother.
yeah, that's fine. But don't listen to trap music. But like the trap actually sounds dark. Like when you listen to it, it's actually got like this real kind of dark, sensual sound to it. And there's a lot of Christians rappers that have went more into this trap music because it's got very popular. And I think that's where I wouldn't go. I when I listen to that, I can't help but just think of that worldly, dark, sensual, man-centered, you know, selfish kind of yeah, that's no, because you did say about music that is like evil, you know, like, and they promote evil things, and a lot of the music today, especially in trap music, is doing that. It's promoting lots of the things that we're seeing in the world, you know, homosexuality, transgenderism, stuff like that.
I guess to follow on from this question, or the general high level of this question, would you listen to a normal somebody who was secular and who used to like, or let's just say a good classical musician who you later found out committed I don't know, it was a convicted pedophile? So would you still listen to that music?
Yeah, you know,
or like the Ravi Zacharias and stuff like that.
It ends up being like that for me, where I would rather not know, because then I'm not bugged by it. But if I do know things like that, then I become bothered by it. And yeah, I may very well choose to never listen to that person again. I mean, you know, it's kind of like knowing whether or not the meat was offered to idols. It's like, well, you know, while you don't know, you're good. But the moment you do know, then it becomes something that, and I recognize Paul's arguing for the conscience of the one who told you, but you know, things can affect your own conscience, because Paul also anticipates kind of a weaker brother who comes to find out that it was offered to an idol, and he thinks the idol's something and he doesn't want to eat it. And so for the sake of, anyway, I mean, you can call it being the weaker brother or whatever, but there are things that I guess if I found out would, I have actually found out certain things about certain authors, composers of certain Christian hymns that, quite honestly, I won't tell the church. I won't tell people, because I don't want to leave a bad thought in people's minds every time we sing that song. And, you know, there's some songs that are tremendous, but the people that wrote them had some very bizarre or strange or even wicked things happen in their life. And I think it would be better if people just didn't know, because you want people to be able to worship when they hear a certain song. But yeah, if I heard certain things about something, would I might very well be minded not to listen anymore. I think we all have to sort that out before the Lord. But I do think that when it comes to error, when it comes to music with words, we need to be people that are committed to truth. And we don't want to be subjecting ourselves to some unwholesome teaching or doctrine